one of the craziest nights of women's basketball I've ever seen. We've got to talk about it. South Carolina, UCLA advanced to the national championship game. Welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. I'm in a different location because I'm trying not to wake up my 8-month-old. I do have the baby monitor here as well. When you talk about sports, as much as I talk about sports, and you make predictions, you're going to be right and you're going to be wrong a lot. That is not uncommon for me to be wrong. I don't mind being wrong because I love sports to watch the games. And if I was always right, I wouldn't need to watch the games. It would be very boring. So it is not uncommon to be wrong. However, it is uncommon to be as wrong as I was about the Final Four and be as happy as I am as a result of being wrong, as a South Carolina Gamecock fan. So, man, let's start there and talk about that game. Talk about a little bit of what I thought going into the game and how it didn't match up. Just an incredible performance. And I will say, I don't mind being wrong. If you are a Gamecock fan and you pull for the Gamecock football team, then that is why you are very cautious about having any sort of optimism about Gamecock sports programs. The men's basketball team doesn't help either. Neither does the baseball team. However, what those programs don't have is Dawn Staley. So, 62-48, avenging last year's national championship loss to Connecticut, ending Connecticut's 54-game win streak. What an incredible performance. We'll start with, I did not think it was going to be possible to shut down both Sarah Strong and AZ Fudd. I thought maybe with the way Fudd has been shooting here recently, you could hope for an off night. I did not think you were going to get an off night from Sarah Strong. My thought was just don't let a third player go off if you're looking to win this game. Well, Fudd did have an off night, which is tough for her to go out like that as a senior. Won a national championship. Going to be a top 3 pick probably in the upcoming WNBA draft, but you don't want to go out like that. Especially there was a point in the third quarter where she was turning down shots that she normally makes. And anytime you've got a shooter who's turning down shots they make, you got a problem. Sarah Strong, in addition to, I did not think she would have a bad game offensively. I thought that Joyce Edwards had to close the gap between herself and Sarah Strong as much as possible. Not only did she close the gap, Joyce Edwards was the better player tonight. Credit to Joyce Edwards. Her numbers aren't going to jump off the screen at you as you're looking here. 11 points, 5 for 14, 8 rebounds, 3 steals. The 5 for 14, no one in either one of these games was really hitting a ton of shots. I don't know if it's the rims, depth perception. I don't know what the problem is. But her 5 for 14, her shots were within the flow of the offense. Sometimes in this season in particular, well, both as a freshman too, she will get into the habit of forcing shots, taking shots that kind of just bring the offense to a halt. The shots she missed tonight were just shots she missed. They were good shots. None of them stood out as like, oh my gosh, what are you doing? She just missed shots. So just by virtue of not forcing shots, that's a plus. She was crashing the glass on both ends, which has been another thing people have pointed out. Like, hey, Joyce, we need some Edwards. We need some effort on the boards. And we got it from her tonight. I think of the LSU game at LSU when I think she had like 1 rebound. That can't happen. She's too good, too athletic for that. 8 rebounds, and she was like in the mix for a lot of rebounds, which is all you can ask. Defensively, she was on Sarah Strong a lot. And if you're going to stop Sarah Strong from doing anything, it has to be a team effort, number one. But she had the one-on-one assignment for much of the night. This was a player, as a freshman, would get hunted defensively. This year, sometimes, just like with the rebounding, the effort, the focus wasn't always there. She gets the biggest piece of credit for the night that Sarah Strong had offensively. Now, Sarah Strong is a great player, probably the best player in the country. She is so good at doing other things, even when she's not scoring. Like, she still filled up the stat sheet, 12 rebounds. Well, she didn't have a lot of assists, but 3 steals, 2 blocks. So great game, but great game with that stuff, with the rebounds, blocks, and steals. And she's really good at blocking shots and getting steals without fouling. So that's just really impressive. I know we'll talk about Geno's thoughts on the refs, but the refs didn't call too many fouls on her. But 4 for 16 from the field. That's credit to Joyce Edwards. Like, hell of an effort. I also thought that with the way that Big East Freshman of the Year, Blanca Quinones, has played, South Carolina's freshman, Agat Makir, was going to have to try to close the gap between those two, even though you could argue that I've been talking about Agat here, feels like every episode. She maybe has played better than Quinones at certain points. She certainly played better than Quinones tonight. Some of that, I know that there was foul trouble for Quinones, but even when she was on the court, the impact just wasn't really there like it has been in the run-up to this game. If we go back and look, 20 points against Notre Dame in the Elite Eight, 16 against North Carolina in the Sweet 16, 18 against Syracuse in the second round, 7 tonight, 2 for 6. It is what it is. I got 14 points, 2 for 2 from 3. The game turned when she came in at the end of the first quarter and they went on a 7-2 run to tie it up. And she hit a 3 at the end of the first quarter to tie the game at 15. That's also when I was like, these two teams on pace to score 60 points. That's in South Carolina's favor. That's a little checkbox towards a W for South Carolina. And in my wrongness, one thing that I got right, lower scoring game favors the Gamecocks. And that's what we got here. Another standout performance, Maddie McDaniel. Raven Johnson, heart and soul of the Gamecock team, sets the tone offensively and defensively, got into foul trouble, came out of the game with like 8:50 left in the second quarter. Maddie came in and held it down. Like, you couldn't really tell a difference. UConn wasn't really able to do anything with Raven on the bench like you would think they'd be able to do. And Raven didn't have a fantastic game. Like 2 points, 1 for 6 from the field, just 1 assist to 4 turnovers. If I told you that stat line, you would say, well, UConn probably won by 20 40 points. Who knows? But that didn't happen. And that's a credit to how good Maddie McDaniel was. And again, just like with Sarah Strong, it was a team effort, but these players really stood out to me. Tania Latson, I did think she'd have to get to the free throw line. She did, 10 for 10. But something I wasn't expecting, 11 rebounds. Just team rebounding, and that got them 47 rebounds to 32 rebounds for UConn. I don't care who you are, almost impossible to overcome that wide of a rebounding margin. So just a hell of a performance. There was a point at the end of the third quarter where it was a 10-point game. Joyce got the rebound to close out a possession. Sarah Strong forced a jump ball, and then it was on for UConn. Looked like the comeback might be on. I believe Kaylee Heckle hit a three, and then let's see if we can find it. Yep, Kaylee Heckle hit a three. Then Tania comes down, takes a three-pointer that wasn't a great shot, misses it. Strong gets the rebound. Quinones hits a three. Then Raven steps out of bounds, and then Azzi hits a three. We've gone from 10-point lead for South Carolina to a 1-point lead in a minute 22. And it's like, oh my gosh, is UConn about to do this? But South Carolina managed to get settled down after that. And that was another thing in my brain. I was like, wait a second. That was a pretty big body blow from UConn. But South Carolina ended that quarter with a 5-point lead. Didn't get all the way back to 10 points, but they closed out the quarter pretty well. And I'm a big believer, whether or not it matters, like, you have to close out quarters well. I feel like that's just like a good tone setter for the next quarter. So I was like, all right, interesting. I wasn't letting myself believe yet. But then we got what has ended up turning into the story of the game, unfortunately. The Geno Auriemma interview with Holly Rowe before the start of the fourth quarter, where he's upset about foul calls. And not only that, that's typical Geno, but he's also calls into question Dawn Staley's conduct with the referees, which was very interesting to me because I did not know he was such a champion for better treatment of referees, just based on how I've seen him act on the sidelines all these years. I did not know he was such a caring man when it comes to these officials. I had never heard a coach call out an opposing coach mid-game like that. That was just really weird. And in my mind, I said, this is not a man that is focused on what is going on the court, the actual play. He's worried about officials. He's paying attention to what Dawn's doing. It's a 5-point game with a quarter left. And you're yelling at Holly Rowe about Dawn Staley and the referees. And also brought up Sarah Strong getting her jersey ripped when we got to see a very hilarious replay because it contradicted him directly. Sarah Strong got frustrated at the end of the third quarter and ripped her own jersey, which is not uncommon. I have done that in practice. I've seen other players do it. She did it herself. If you somehow have evidence to the contrary, let me know. But she did it herself. And Geno even doubled down. He doubled down on everything he did because there's more he did, as you know. But he doubled down on this in the press conference, even after Sarah was asked about it and said, like, it was an accident. I ripped my jersey. But he still doubled down on this. So at that point, I was watching the game, taking notes on my phone. And at that point, I stood up in front of the TV, which is how I typically watch games that I care very much about. And I had taken off the analyst hat and put on the Gamecock hat, and I had to put my poor dog Kobe in his room because he was starting to bark. And again, we can't wake the baby. So he was into the madness, but I couldn't have him into the madness. He had to go in his room with a treat. And while I got into the madness as quietly as possible, because I am loud at times, but I'm not barking. So then the fourth quarter, and they just could not get anything going. UConn. For a team that had just gone on a run that they had gone on and gave some of it back, I was expecting another run. It just never came. Like, South Carolina just looked confident and in control the whole time from halftime on. So I believe I saw a quote where Tanaya Latson was talking about Dawn was at halftime telling them, meet the moment. You got to meet the moment. They met the moment. Like, that was a completely different team after halftime, which is crazy because the fact that they kept it so close, there was hope, but they look like champions. They look like champions. And they just came out and finished the job. And it was just, at the end, it was almost made you feel bad for UConn. Cause I know, like, Kaylee Heckle missed a wide open layup at the end and just got very emotional on the court about it. But I did save most of my emotion for just being happy to be a Gamecock fan. And then we get the other story where Geno, before time had run out completely because there was a shot clock violation as South Carolina was dribbling out the clock, approached Dawn for the handshake and goes at her in a very aggressive manner. Come to find out, this wasn't about her treatment of officials, because I was like, man, this dude loves referees. That's crazy. But it was about a pregame handshake issue where I guess she shook his hand at one point and the rest of the assistants. But according to Geno, was supposed to come out again to shake her hand at half court. Didn't. He waited 3 minutes and she still didn't come out there. This upset him. He told her about it in a very aggressive manner. And what kind of behavior is that? As I say, that someone is a sore loser. That was wild. And he was unapologetic, as you would expect, during his post-game press conference. And it just makes me wonder, if Dawn Staley had done that, how would this be going down? Like, Geno's receiving criticism, but if, as a black woman, Dawn Staley had acted the way that Geno had, what would we be saying right now? I mean, we saw when Angel Reese gave Caitlin Clark a taste of her own medicine, which is with on-court taunting, which is nothing. We saw how that turned out. So you would, to me, if you think that was bad, and I don't, but Geno's behavior exceeds that, And as a coach, he should have a higher standard of behavior as well. Then what are we saying about him? Like, it'll just be, it's whatever. We'll just get over it. We'll move past it. It is what it is. But it shouldn't be. It should. It's tough because it should be more of a story, but you don't want it to like overshadow what is the real story, which is that South Carolina beat UConn's ass. They dismantled them. That should be the story. But at the same time, like, there should be some sort of like consequence or something for Geno, but I can't imagine that there will be. And I also think that part of this was genuine, and another part of it, he just did it to take the spotlight off of his players losing, is like a weird way to protect his players. But it's bullshit either way. So I don't know. So yeah, South Carolina ruined my bracket. I'm happy they ruined my bracket because I just can't believe everything that Dawn Staley has done for this state. It's almost 1 a.m. Eastern time here. So I can't talk. But like, let me just look at this. Playing for a national championship for the third year in a row. 6 straight Final Fours. There was the period in the, like, there have been some good teams in South Carolina history. Nancy Wilson, I know she coached at the College of Charleston for a little bit. But we haven't seen anything like this, okay? She's turned them into a program that beats UConn so badly in the Final Four that their coach loses his mind. Like, Dawn Staley is now the standard of women's basketball coaches as far as I'm concerned. Never thought I would be able to say that about any Gamecock coach ever. But here we are. So, I don't know what I'm going to do. Easter Sunday, man, this is going to be crazy. The second game that I was wrong about, UCLA beat Texas 51-44. I recognize I was wrong about this one very quickly. UCLA came out and just looked ready immediately. Like, hit a couple threes early on. They looked tougher than Texas. And neither offense was good. If you watch the game, I don't have to tell you that. But Texas's offense, I don't know if we've seen a performance like that from them. Like, I talk about the Vandy game as a turning point, but there was nothing even before the Vandy game that really looked like that from them, I don't think. Like, this feels like some of the stuff they would do last season when they would have these just anemic offensive performances. Let's pull up and see what we can. Because, I mean, yeah, they've been so good this year, particularly in the lead up to this game. I mean, they just drilled Michigan, a team that played UCLA close. They've just been so good offensively. It blows my mind. So for them to look how they looked, and they had, like, it's hard to pull from games for me this early in the season. The November 26th performance when they beat UCLA, and the fact that they beat UCLA this game is proof of why we shouldn't do this maybe. But they had UCLA, they forced Madison Booker into a tough shooting game in this one. But Booker has been so good these past 12 games. We talked about like 60% from the field, hasn't really had a stinker of a game. Let's see. So, you get some, the 6 for 21 against LSU is obviously bad, but the game she had today reminded me of last year when Texas lost at South Carolina. Yeah. 112, the day after my birthday. I was there, 3 for 19, and it got to a point where I think they drew up a play to get her a pretty open layup to start the second half, and she missed it. And that was just like the story of the day for her. She just couldn't get anything going. And it kind of felt like tonight, UCLA had a good defensive plan. And when bets got switched on her, she was out there contesting really well. It felt like as soon as Booker missed like a couple shots, she almost panicked and started forcing. I don't know if they were necessarily bad shots. Maybe they were, because she shot 3 for 23. But they were just shots where you're like, probably could have gotten something better. Even she took some threes where it was like she took them simply because she was open. And that's not really her game. You do want her to shoot open threes, but it's just kind of like, okay, this is as open as I'm going to get. So the ball has to go up. So the fact that the Texas offense looked the way it did early on, UCLA, I thought Texas could out-tough them. And UCLA came out and looked like the tougher team. I think they were saying I think Vic's in between quarter interview, he mentioned that too. Like, we're just not playing tough, which is not something. When was the last time you could say that about a Texas team? So then I'm like, oh man, I'm going to be wrong again probably. And it was just so surreal at halftime because it was like they had done like a Freaky Friday switch where UCLA looked like Texas has looked, and Texas looked how I expected UCLA to look against Texas. And it's halftime, it's 20-17. UCLA is up 3, but it feels like they are in control somehow, even though they're only up 3. And I just couldn't figure out how we got to this point. It just, nothing made sense to me. Rory Harmon was the reason Texas was in this game through halftime, to halftime, like both ends of the court, setting the tone as she's done here as of late and throughout her whole career. But she's really turned it up a level. And she was great on both ends. Again, her numbers aren't going to pop out at you, but she was scoring she was scoring when no one else was scoring. 8 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, 4 steals, defensive. Like, she was really good at forcing turnovers. But it was just, I don't know. I just could not wrap my head around, first of all, how ugly of a game it was. And I'm still trying to come down from everything with the South Carolina game. I finally had a seat and got Kobe, my dog, out. And I'm just watching these teams just miss shots. And I was just like, this is, I'd take Pepto-Bismol or something. I don't know. And I spoke, might have been at the tournament when I was filling out my bracket about Justice Carlton. I know Texas superfan Kim Singleton also reminded me in the comments of the Final Four preview about Justice Carlton, how she's been an X factor for Texas this whole season. And when it felt like, oh, maybe UCLA is not in complete control, Justice Carlton had all 7 of her points. She only played 14 minutes. She had all 7 of her points in a stretch in the third quarter. Let me pull this up. And it was like, okay, well, Justice Carlton is here. So maybe the rest of the Longhorns will also show up here shortly. So, yeah, she hit a little jump shot with a minute and a half left. They get the defensive rebound, gets a layup and an and one. Then another turnover for UCLA, and then she makes a layup. So let's see, 49 seconds. Yeah, this was in less than a minute. The lead has gone from 8 to 1. And I'm like, okay, that's a pretty good spot to be. UCLA gets it back up to 3 heading into the fourth. And you're thinking, okay, if Carlton's going to score, maybe they can get Booker going and we'll see what happens. And they did not ever get Booker going, unfortunately. She did finally hit another shot, but it was, I think she missed 17 in a row. And they were raising a good question on the broadcast, like, when do you want her to stop shooting? And I don't know. That's tough because she kept shooting, but wasn't making anything. But then you got AZ Fudd in the UConn game who was turning down shots. She should have been shooting. I think you always want your star player to shoot the ball. Like you want to live or die by what they're doing. But damn, 3 for 23, that's a lot of dying. And Jordan Lee, there were a couple players like Jordan Lee. She never got going offensively. Turned the ball over to Brea Cunningham, who had been good here recently. Just wasn't effective. Got in foul trouble. It was a Geno would have lost his mind at this game because this game very physical. I felt like it was pretty consistent on both ends, the refereeing. And going back to the South Carolina UConn game, I don't think that was a poorly officiated game either. But this one, they were just letting them beat the hell out of each other. Corey Close was about to have a stroke on the sideline. I know I talked about the little story that Holly was telling, I believe, during the Oklahoma State game where the players were like telling Corey to relax. And I said we would judge whether or not they were too relaxed and needed to focus more, or if they were just cool, calm, collected, and confident based on the results. Well, I guess they are confident, and that's why they told her to relax. But also, Corey Close needs to relax. Okay, you were doing a lot there on the sideline. Take it easy. But yeah, just the fourth quarter of this game, even though Carlton never scored again, Booker never got going, does not mean it was not a close game, because it got down to a one possession game after UCLA, would they get up by 10 with 3:08 left, looks over, but let me pull up, share the screen again. Looked over, but we get Kyla Oldacre, a free throw from her. We do get a Madison Booker shot that might have broken her streak, her 17 shot streak. I'm not sure. Then we get more Oldacre and we get Jordan Lee, and we are a 3-point game now. how that came to be and what I would be paying attention to if I'm on the Gamecock coaching staff, which I'm not, and that's good. That's why they've been so successful. And so they're probably already doing this. UCLA could not handle Texas's press. Like, I think there was a 5-second call. There was one that should have been a 5-second call, I thought. They were throwing the ball away. It got to a point where they were just throwing Hail Marys down the court to try to break the press, which is not what anyone teaches you when it comes to breaking a press. They just couldn't do it. They could not handle the press. And if Texas had been able to score, we would not be having this. We would have the 47th meeting between Texas and South Carolina in the past 2 seasons, and I would lose my mind. But not a great job of handling the press by UCLA. Speaking of Texas reverting back to last year and Madison Booker, I thought we also saw that from Kiki Rice. Kiki Rice has been much improved this season, but this game, loose with the ball, there was a play at the end when it had gotten tight where Betts had the ball in the post, who was fantastic, by the way. 16 points, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 blocks. Betts had the ball in the post, kicked it back out to Kiki, and had reposted. And instead of giving her the ball back when she had been far and away the best player on the court, as she normally is, Rice decided to try to drive and lost the ball. And I can't remember if Texas went down and scored, but it was not good. I just give the ball to the post, everybody, if you're listening to me. But yeah, it was a rough game from her. And I think if you're going to beat South Carolina, you can't have a rough game like that again. I've been wrong many times the past 2 episodes, but I choose to believe that I'm right about that. 23 turnovers as a team for UCLA. I cannot imagine doing that against South Carolina and winning. Okay? I don't. But Betts was incredible. She had a block on Madison Booker at the end. To see her at 6'7" get down the court to even be in position to make the block, that was spectacular. The fact that she made it, I couldn't believe it. Just a truly, truly talented player. Dugalich, she's been making big play after big play. I want to pull up, I'm pretty sure back when UCLA lost to LSU in the tournament a couple seasons ago, she had a really rough game. Yes. Let's see. Let's share this. Yeah. So this was, I believe, the Elite Eight last year. Good Lord. Time flies. That's right. She was 0 for 2, 23 minutes. She was a starter then. They told a great story about how she told Corey Close, just take me off, let me come off the bench. She won Big Ten Sixth Woman of the Year. Great season for her. To come from this performance to, again, another player who the numbers aren't going to jump off the page at you, but big play after big play when you're watching. Incredible growth. But then in this game, this is like this 1 for 7 from Kiki Rice in this game, and the way she played down the stretch of this game, this LSU game in 2025, that's what I saw tonight, and that's what has me scared for UCLA in the national championship game. So, what do you think? What do I think is going to happen in the national championship game? South Carolina favored by 2.5 points. Oh, they don't have the little ESPN percentage of who is going to win. Well, I will tell you, I don't know what's going to happen. I think South Carolina is going to win. I hope South Carolina is going to win. UCLA is a very good team. Okay, even the issues they had tonight with turnovers and breaking the press and all this, you got Lauren Betts. That is a very good start. But I think I said in the Final Four preview, if you were to just judge off of talent, experience, skill set, 1 through 7, UCLA has the best team in the country on paper. The games aren't played on paper, but they are more than capable of winning a national championship. The Betts-Okat matchup, that's going to be huge. Okat, not a great performance, looked kind of timid offensively tonight. She's got to make Betts defend her because that was some of what was happening with Oldacre. She would have to go get the ball on the perimeter at times, and Betts would just sag off into the paint. That can't happen if you're South Carolina. You don't want that to happen. You need her guarding Okat. I think it's a little bit different with Okat too, because she is a threat to shoot from 3, where that's not Oldacre's game. But you need Okat. Second half of LSU at LSU performance from Okat has to be here because Lauren Betts is incredible. Kiki Rice, Leisure Walker, how are you going to deal with the defensive pressure from the South Carolina guards? You survived the Texas guards. My hope is that South Carolina won't be nearly as bad offensively as Texas looked tonight. So if you have the performance, the LSU, if the UCLA guards have the performance against South Carolina that they had against Texas, they will not be able to overcome that. I don't think. That would be very tough to overcome that 2 games in a row. They're going to have to be composed. Even Gabriela Jaquez, she was turning the ball over a lot. You can't do that. Neepkins, she was solid. She was solid defensively too. They were really showing Booker a lot of different looks. I would see Neepkins on her some, Jaquez, Dugalich. This is a good team. And that's kind of what we were looking for. That's why it was hard to gauge what was going to happen in the Final Four, because those 4 teams were so far above everyone else in the nation that, like, you're trying to make predictions based off of how they played against lesser teams, and the gap is just so wide. Like, whew, it was tough. It was tough. And I'm going to be wrong again. I don't care. Y'all can't stop me. I've already got the microphone. South Carolina, I mean, just more of the same. If they play how they played tonight, which was by no means a perfect game, but they went out, they executed. If they do this again, they will once again be national champions. And you want to give Corey Close, I've wondered about her coaching at a national championship level. She's clearly a great coach. She's taken that program to heights that it's never been before. But I wondered about her in the same conversation as Geno, as Dawn, as Vic Schaefer. She's proven herself. She's made it to the national championship game. I still give the edge to Dawn Staley, who has won national championship after national championship after national championship. She's been in these games before. The edge goes to Dawn Staley there, and I'm curious to see the game plans with the two teams, because they each have so many different strengths. So it's like, what do you take away, and what do these matchups look like? I think South Carolina is going to win. That's probably a lot of that is my fandom speaking, but I don't care. I've suppressed it long enough. South Carolina, I don't know. What more can you say? What more can you say? I feel like Geno said it all. So yeah, I hope any of this made sense. I'm rambling. I'm sleepy. I'm trying to be quiet. I'm in the poor lighting. So it's going to be fun. Either way, that's what it is. It's going to be fun. It's Easter Sunday. Enjoy your time with your family. And you know what? I don't know if this was a good episode, but I know it was better than whatever the hell that expansion draft was. Okay. They came out there like they were going to reveal the picks one at a time. And they showed the whole roster after doing that for one single pick for each team. I don't know what that was. So I know this was better than that. So you're welcome. This has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. Thank you for watching, listening, rating, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing. I had to count that on my hand because it is that late and I am that washed. Again, hope y'all have a happy Easter. Hope y'all enjoy this game. I know I will. I'll do it a lot more if one team wins over the other. But yeah, I will catch y'all later.